You were around the Dolphins for many years, and you continue to be around the Dolphins. A lot of locker rooms, a lot of team cultures, a lot of coaches, and so on. What did the good teams have in common as far as from a standpoint of culture?
Yeah, strong leadership, both at the top, and by that I mean from a coaching perspective, and in the locker room. Strong leadership with strong character. And I love when accountability. There's something about accountability, which probably goes back to one of the other things you asked about in terms of the great leaders, is accountability, is owning your flaws as much as you accept, and to be able to stand up there at the podium when you're the hero.
If you're a Dolphin fan, more than likely you've heard my next guest. He is along with his partner in crime, O.J. McDuffie, former Dolphin great, the host of the Fish Tank podcast. But not only does he have that, he has a day job as executive director of the Jason Taylor Foundation. Welcome to the show, Seth Levit.
Thanks for having me. I mean, this is great. I didn't know what I was walking into.
You didn't know, huh?
I want to see if I can, lease this space from time to time.
Yeah, well, listen.
We got a good thing going here.
We got a good thing going. Welcome to the studio. We're happy to have you on.
Great to be here. Thank you. I'm honored.
I was thinking, so before, you started the Fish Tank and obviously work with the Jason Taylor Foundation. You worked for the Miami Dolphins for many years, and you worked for media legend Harvey Green.
I did. Wow. Yeah, I did not expect the first question. Well, Harvey Green question.
Here's what I always found fascinating about Harvey Green. The guy literally worked for the toughest bosses.
He did.
So he worked for George Steinbrenner, Don Shula, Jimmy Johnson, the owners, Joe Robbie, and then he also worked in the White House, didn't he?
Yeah, he's done some stuff. I think just most recently with Dr. Biden, he did a lot of advanced work for Jill Biden. Yeah, Harvey's the ultimate character. He's a little bit of a Forrest Gump of PR. Great stories. There is a Trivial Pursuit question about Steinbrenner, I think during training camp, put a curfew on Harvey, on his PR guy.
Did he really?
He called one night and couldn't reach him. And so Harvey's a legend. Wasn't always the easiest guy to work for, but I'd like to think it made me a better PR person, just a tougher professional in general.
Yeah.
Learned a lot, laughed a lot. And still talk to Harvey to this day. Great guy.
So what are some lessons learned from a guy that literally had the toughest bosses? The next time somebody complains about their boss, go, I want to introduce you to my friend Harvey. He worked for some pretty tough hombres.
Yeah, he did. Well, one of the first things he said when I got the job, not the internship, but when I got the job hired full time, he goes, listen, I know you just got a full-time job, but I'm going to give you the advice that everybody gave me. Yeah. And he said, rent, don't buy. And it was, he worked for Steinbrenner. He said he got fired 4 or 5 times. That was great advice. I think just watching the way he navigated, the things I thought he navigated most impressively was crisis situations.
Really?
Sometimes Harvey made easier things harder than they needed to be.
Yeah.
But crisis situations, he was always really good. He was never rattled. I always thought during some of the toughest times, he knew how to respond. He knew what the media needed. He also knew how to protect the team from some of the things the media might do. So I was very impressed with the way he handled that. And then working for Harvey, like I said, wasn't always easy. And he was definitely tough on us. But anytime somebody that was higher ranking than him was in the room, he took the hit for everything.
Really?
If it could have been my fault, he would take the hit because ultimately it was his department.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't throw me under the bus in front of the team president, so to speak.
Yeah.
Afterwards, he would light me up. He would light me up. But in that moment, and that was meaningful, right? Because you have to have thick skin working in professional sports.
Yeah.
But nobody, when you're making $22,000 a year and you're the number 3 guy and afraid that you could get fired at any moment, nobody wants to be humiliated in front of the team president, in front of the head coach.
Of course not.
And he would always take the hit there and then ultimately teach us the lesson.
Teach you the lesson.
Yeah.
Give me an example of crisis management when you were there.
Oh my gosh. I mean, pick one. So somebody brought up Demetrius Underwood the other day. I don't know if you remember that situation. We had
for the audience, what was the situation?
Well,
the story's
Demetrius
crazy.
Underwood, we had a number of players, and this happens a lot in sports, where it's like, okay, if the risk is significant, but the investment is not, let's take a chance.
Yeah.
And so Cecil Collins, Demetrius Underwood.
Dolphins have a few.
On and on and on. But Demetrius Underwood, I think, we're chuckling now, but I think there was some significant mental health things going on there. And I think there was some self-harm, and maybe he even escaped from a from a hospital, and just all of these things that are not your average NFL day. So I mean, we had some of that stuff. We had a player shot, Daryl Gardner. I remember we drafted Daryl Gardner, and he was shot in the jaw or something. Shot in the jaw, drove himself to the hospital.
That shows how big and tough he was.
Daryl Gardner was a superhuman in that regard. But like watching that and the way he handled that and the way he kind of talked to the head coach, prepped the head coach, talked to the head of security, had a statement prepared, what we are going to say, what we aren't going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, those things would happen in here in South Florida. They seem to happen more frequently than other cities. He just, there was never anything that he wasn't prepared to handle.
And those are the ones that the world heard about. There's a bunch that we never heard about.
The things I can't get into.
There's things that you can't get into. Right. And that's a separate podcast. Working in PR for so many years, how did you manage these players' images as far as, what the public got to see or not see?
Sure. Yeah, it's really interesting you asked that question because we just, for the students at the Jason Taylor Foundation, we just had a talk back with somebody who's a younger PR professional with the Dolphins now. And she said something that resonated with me. And it was the idea that as I was the number 3 guy, I was the young guy in the department. But the young guys, you have to remember that the players are all young guys. If you think about it, they're all 20 to 30. If you're 30, you're ancient. So they're all younger guys. And so when I came in at 23 years old with the Dolphins as an intern, most of the guys were roughly around my age.
Yeah.
We probably all had the same high school graduation song.
Yeah.
Listened to some similar music. Jason and I got close because I played a lot of pickup basketball. It wasn't any good, but I played, and he wanted to know where the good courts were in the area. And so you start to relate to those guys on a personal level and allows you to understand them more, which allows you to maybe tell a better story or a more comprehensive story beyond just, okay, a guy's 6'3" and runs a 4.7 and, had this many tackles his senior year, so you get to know them better, which in turn I think allows you to help identify the things that would be of interest to them and identify the things about them that might be interesting to a member of the media.
So much of it is storytelling, right? It's
all storytelling. It's why I fell in love with podcasting.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would be on this side of a camera and a microphone.
Yeah.
But it is the storytelling. And so in PR, or media relations communications, they call it now, you know the stories,
right?
And you essentially pitch the stories to the storytellers. And so you have to be able to tell a story in that regard. But now on this side of it, just like yourself, we get to bring the stories out of people and be a part of the storytelling.
Great businesses are built on great relationships, and that starts with how you serve your customers. At Inktel, we help companies deliver exceptional customer experiences through contact center solutions, customer care, sales support, and back office services that strengthen loyalty and drive growth. When every interaction matters, partner with a team that puts people first. Visit Inktel.com to learn more.
What do you think traditional media got wrong about podcasts?
Ooh, what did traditional media get wrong about podcasts?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So when you ask that question, so I want to make sure I give you a good answer about it. Like traditional media, maybe not realizing that they were about to get passed by kind of a thing?
So a little bit of both. I mean, look, my view is whether it's the newspapers or just even TV media, the CNNs and stuff like, does anybody listen to the CNN podcast? They should have had the market, right? They had the viewers, the listeners, and they should have just owned it. Whether they ignored it or they just missed it, I'm not quite sure.
I think sometimes they're also just repurposing their content.
Yeah, right.
It's a different medium.
It's a different
medium. I think podcasting is so much more personal, and I imagine we'll talk about it. But the evolution podcasting now, they're really just these little video shows.
Yeah,
and,
100%.
And I still love audio storytelling, although
I do too.
It would be silly to ignore YouTube, and I did for too long, and now I'm playing catch up. But I think especially audio, the listener who consumes audio-only podcasting, it's so personal. It's like you're hanging out with a friend. It's like you're on a private phone call.
Yeah.
It's just you and your buddy, and nobody else knows what you're talking about. You know, you ever see someone, they're just laughing in their car and there's nobody else in the car with them, and they're listening to their favorite podcaster or whatever it might be. And I think if you just repurpose what you had on television, it may not, and I'm not just talking about because there's a visual and now there's not, but I think sometimes you have to think about the listener and how they're consuming the content. And maybe that's where it was, but they're catching up.
They're catching up. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. one of the interesting things about your podcast, and I shared with you, I'm a listener,
Appreciate
is
that.
It really touches, like it hits all the buttons if you're a real Dolphin homer.
Right.
Right. Like if you're a real
Absolutely.
Dolphin fan.
I mean, that's who it's for.
That's what it's for. Like I told you, obviously I loved your interview with Dan Marino, but like the interviews I like are like that second year, the guy that played here for 4 years and was the offensive guard. Like, yeah, man, what's that guy's story? And what is he doing now? Like, because the reality is like these guys, if you're lucky, you have a 6-7 year career.
Right.
And then you retire and you're 29, 30 years old. Like what is your life
the rest
like?
Of your life. Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. And you dive into that.
I like what you did there.
Yeah, of course.
We do. Yeah, the concept that OJ and I came up with at the beginning was if OJ and I pick a Dolphin, whether it's Zach Thomas or Jason Taylor or Larry Chester or a guy that is just kind of a name that you remember, and you walked into Longhorn Steakhouse and we were sitting in the booth next to you, and the whole time you're just eavesdropping because you want to know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to create. What would we talk about and remember and reflect upon and maybe be a little racy and and so do we truly pull the curtain all the way back? Well, maybe no. There's things, but were we letting people in to hear things that they hadn't heard? I even had one of the beat writers, Jason Cole, who we would butt heads when he covered the team. Jason Cole's the guy who broke the Reggie Bush story, right? I mean, so he's that kind of investigative reporter. So you can imagine the headbutting that might have gone on there. But Jason fell in love with our show, and we have a great relationship now. And he would say, I would hear inklings of these things, but I could never really know what the story was. And now I get to hear it on your show. So that's what we tried to create. I'm with you that some of the lesser known guys have some of the more compelling stories.
Yes.
Part of it is because we don't know their story.
Yeah.
Part of it is because there's a rawness to some of it.
Yeah.
That you don't get with the guys who maybe have the shinier veneer.
Yeah, they're less guarded.
The top of them.
They're less guarded. They have nothing to lose because not a lot of people know who they are other than Dolphin freaks.
Yeah, or there's the what would have been, what could have been. There were all of those things, and there's a pain that some guys haven't gotten over, but they're willing to share with us on the show. And I just find all that compelling.
What's the feedback from fans on that? Like the kind of content that you're producing. What do they like? What don't they like?
Yeah, I'm kind of going through this. Well, probably 6 months ago, I would call it an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Now I've accepted it. I was so proud of what we built with the fish tank. And I still am.
Yeah.
But what has happened in our most recent phase, we're calling it phase 4, when we left the team after 4 or 5 years, great years with the team, and really could do whatever we wanted.
Yeah.
We're talking about the current team more.
Yeah.
And we could do a 40-minute show on current nonsense.
Yeah.
And it will outperform an interview that I feel like is Emmy Award winning.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
Yeah.
And I really am proud of our interviews.
Yeah.
But they don't they don't appeal to the masses in the same way the right now of this industry is. And I'd go on these walks and I would tweet out at our fans and what are you enjoying? What are you not, our stuff versus this and that. And I had people that would say in season, I want to know for my fantasy team. I want to know for the injuries. I'm so caught up on who our next opponent is. And so and then I binge your stuff in the off season.
Right.
Or if I go on a long drive for spring break, my kids hate it, but they're going to listen to 9 hours of the fish tank. And that's how they catch up to our stuff. And so I would watch our numbers wax and wane.
Yeah.
We're at the stage now. I definitely still chase the numbers. I mean,
sure,
this isn't a hobby for me. It's exactly right.
Yeah,
it's a business. We're trying to generate some kind of revenue. But at the same time, if I want to do something, if there's somebody we want to interview, OJ and I are going to interview them.
Big spikes, guest dependent, right? Marino gets a lot more than, Chester.
You get Dan Marino on, and all of a sudden you're on the Apple top 100 charts. And I think when we had Marino, we were like a top 30 NFL podcast or football podcast in the country for a few days.
Yeah.
And now hey, I get excited. Hey, Juice, we're number 2 in Honduras. Venezuela, we just made it to top 10, and which is great. But obviously, we had Tua on, and they took a clip of. We had Tua on. We were the first media outlet that Tua Tagovailoa spoke to after Brian Flores was let go and Mike McDaniel was hired, and the team was strategic in that regard because they wanted to put him with somebody that would be safe, but that we could still ask some of the important questions. And I'm getting text. People are watching ESPN and they're showing a clip of our podcast. And
That's very cool.
So guest dependent for sure. For a show like ours, the big dogs, it doesn't matter who they put on there. They're going to do numbers.
Yeah.
But for a show like ours, when you have the big guests, you're going to have those spikes.
Recently, you've become more of a YouTube channel. Lessons learned early on from YouTube. So what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? What do you still need to do?
I'm still learning. That's why I called you, man. You're doing a whole lot right. I think the biggest thing we did wrong was I ignored it for 5 years.
Yeah.
When we started, when the Dolphins brought us on board, we really weren't even doing video.
Yeah.
It was all audio only. The Dolphins added a video component for us. They had us on a local television network, and all of our stuff was published on their channels. And so I just ignored our YouTube channel. Literally didn't publish anything for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
And then we went on our own, and I'm like, everybody's doing YouTube.
You have to.
And we got 600 followers or subscribers.
Yeah.
So we have a problem here. So that was eye-opening. It was a little frustrating, and had spent a lot of time studying the audio market.
Right.
And then realizing I knew nothing about the video market.
Yeah.
So I think, that was something that I'm continuing to work through. I know now to invest heavily in my thumbnails.
There you go.
My thumbnails
absolutely.
and titles are more
100%.
important than my content,
Yep.
which is, again, something that's like, man, I care about the stuff that we do, but now I really care about our thumbnails. And we did a partnership with a fan-created, I would say podcast, but they're more than that. They're kind of a media company in a way, Dolphins Talk. So they're one of the longer-running fan-created content outlets.
Yeah.
And they have a website, they have podcasts, they have YouTube. And so they now license our show. So they get to premiere all of our video first on their YouTube channel. So we kind of, Juice and I looked at our each other and said, all right, our moneymaker is our audio podcast.
Yeah.
We still want to grow the video component.
Yeah.
But if we can license the video component to somebody else, we still can repurpose that content, but we'll get more eyes. And the first month that we did it, our audio podcast even grew because I think that their fan base came and found us.
What do you think the NFL media landscape looks like, minus TV? I'm talking this world. What does it look like in the next 3-4 years?
It's a great question. Yeah, I haven't. I probably need to think about that.
Yeah.
Well,
it's constantly changing. It's tough.
One of the big things you're getting now is all of the players taking control of their own media.
Right.
And they were doing that first through their Instagram stories and what have you, but they're all popping up with podcasts and now their own media outlets. And so I think you're getting a lot of the storytelling from the individuals who did it.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing print media just completely being eviscerated by all of this and social media. For those who are South Florida, and not that it's just South Florida, but Dave Hyde.
Yeah, right.
So
Great
Dave
guy.
Hyde is a legendary voice in this town, and full bias, I consider Dave a friend. I have great respect for Dave. Sun Sentinel just made a financial decision, let Dave go, 35, 36 years writing for the Sentinel. And I think the columnist voice is no longer as revered, in my mind, as it should be. But you have fan YouTubers with 50,000 subscribers.
Yeah, man.
And fans want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, do you understand the perspective that this guy's giving you?
Right.
So I think you're seeing a big shift there.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to continue to see that shift. Yeah. And also a lot of it is it's just fast and in your face. And I do hope that the storytelling, this kind of conversational piece is something that doesn't go away because I just think it's too important.
What guests have you had on that really surprised you?
Wow, what a great question. Guests that surprised me. We had Devon Bess on. Devon was really good. So Devon Bess, for those who don't know Devon, he was an undrafted free agent out of the University of Hawaii. Devon was he came from California, grew up in a very rough area, was going to go to, I don't know if it was Oregon or Oregon State, and he got into legal trouble. Had some friends he grew up with, got into legal trouble, got thrown in jail.
Wow.
Lost his scholarship and was playing out in the yard, touch football in the yard, lighting it up.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, this guy needs to be playing. So like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, this guy's talented.
And got in touch with June Jones, who was the coach of the University of Hawaii. And went out there, and that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And he went out there and had a good career and came to the Dolphins as an unrestricted, not an unrestricted, a rookie free agent, and ended up being a good player for this team.
Yeah.
But then he went through some things. There were different parts of his life where he went through some things, mental health. You hear these stories more and more. And he was really open about that on the show.
Really?
We were very pleased with that. Sammy Smith was another guy. You talk about the true
I heard the
Dolphins
episode.
fans.
It's fantastic.
How good was that?
It's a great episode. Highly recommend it. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, please do.
I didn't know his full story. And by the way, the redemption.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise the story, a tragedy is different than the story of redemption.
Right.
And you're talking number 1 draft pick.
Yep.
Was an absolute superstar. It's the guy who taught Deion Sanders how to run track.
Yeah, right.
At Florida State, right?
At 230 pounds.
At 230 pounds, and he has those back-to-back fumbles and back-to-back games. The Sammy sucks, the whole thing. And we know that as fans. We sat in, so a lot of your listeners probably sat in those stadiums and Sammy sucks and the whole thing. And you don't know that the guy just lost his son to sudden infant death syndrome. You also don't know that the guy's driving home to Apopka and dealing drugs.
Yeah, man.
And all of those things, and served hard time. And then, he found spirituality and changed his life and doesn't shy away from those things. But we were blown away by, and that's a guy that guy even talked to us. And then not only does he talk to you, but he's listened to some episodes. He respects the show. So those kind of things, they jump out at you and leave a memory.
Him being authentic and honest and stuff like that. I remember when I saw it on the podcast list of yours, I was like, man, what happened to Sammy Smith? You know what I mean? And his story, and I was like, this is actually fascinating, and I'm really happy that he turned his life around because, he was in a dark place and came out okay. So
and inspiring others,
and
working
inspiring
with young
others.
athletes, and so that was very cool. That was
what advice would you give to somebody today in starting a sports podcast?
Find a way to be unique without having to rely on being the shock value. I think there's room for so much here. There really is. I mean, as crowded of a space as it is, I can't even tell you how many Dolphins podcasts there are. Every day you turn around, somebody else has created one, which is great.
Right.
There's room for all of that, but you have to find a way to be unique and care about your product. Care about your product. I think that's critical, is that if you care, why would anybody else care if you don't? And so if you put, pardon my language, but if you put bullshit out there, then that's what I think people are going to see it as.
You were around the Dolphins for many years, and you continue to be around the Dolphins. A lot of locker rooms, a lot of team cultures, a lot of coaches, and so on. What did the good teams have in common as far as from a standpoint of culture?
Strong leadership, both at the top, and by that I mean from a coaching perspective, and in the locker room. Strong leadership with strong character. And strong character doesn't mean that everybody is Tim Tebow.
Right.
You have to, I'm Gator, sorry. But you don't have to be that where you pray after every possession.
Rah-rah speech every 2 minutes.
You don't have to be that. And look, human beings in general are flawed.
Yeah, sure.
And then if you take human beings and you put them in positions of power and put them in with status and a lot of money and all of these things, you're going to have flawed individuals. But still within those flaws, I think there's certain guys that at their core, and I know that sounds a little bit like it's contradictory, but at their core, there's some strong character and moral fiber in there. And so if you have those guys, and especially if they're your most talented guys, you've got a chance to be a pretty good football team. But you have to have strong leadership at the top. And I think, the most recent version of the Miami Dolphins that we saw with Mike McDaniel here. And boy, I think a lot of people wanted, especially younger people, wanted the Mike McDaniel experiment to work. And it truly was an experiment because he was so counterculture to what not just an NFL head coach, but just head coaches in sport in general are. And we were fortunate enough to have McDaniel on the show. And we were left blown away. There was this quiet and cool confidence about him. And we were like, this guy's great. I want to follow this guy. But I just feel like there wasn't enough it's lazy almost to say not enough discipline, but I just don't feel like that he was a strong enough leader.
Yeah.
And he turned it over so much to the room that it was hard to ever pull it back.
Yeah.
And I think he was let down by the
For sure.
guys that he turned it over to. Like so Jason played for the Jets for 1 year. Sorry, Dolphins fans.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he played for the Jets for 1 year. Rex Ryan was the head coach.
Yeah.
And they went to, he was there for, I think, the third of 3 straight AFC championships. The next year, they bottomed out. And I asked him what happened, because he raved about Rex Ryan and the way he let the adults be the adults. Mm-hmm. And he said the right guys were in the room. Like, that type of leadership works if you have the right guys in the room. But when the guys who are the quote-unquote leaders are the wrong guys, eventually you start to fall apart.
Yeah, in business, and we talk about it here all the time at our office, is who are your locker room guys, right? Who, when the boss ain't around, is going to pull someone aside and say, hey, look, man, this is the way that we operate here.
Right.
And this is the way that we conduct ourselves. Because if we're not around and somebody's being a dope or doing things the wrong way or being lazy or, whatever, is there someone in that room that's going to, pull that person aside and say, look, that's just not the way that we conduct. This is the way that we operate around here. You mentioned character, but I mean, look, you've been around some amazing leaders. Don Shula, Jimmy Johnson, lots of great players, Jason Taylor. What are a couple things that they all have in common?
I'm going to use a word that I just said on our live show. I don't want to hear anymore with these current Dolphins. They were all very convicted in what their beliefs were and their process. I think that was a part of it. I think you talk about a lot of guys who didn't talk out of one side of their mouth and act another. The actions and the words matched. Relentlessly devoted to winning.
Really?
Relentlessly devoted to winning. Jimmy, I have a friend who says we got Jimmy light, because Jimmy in Dallas was a different version of Jimmy.
Even Jimmy admits that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And he started making a lot of money in stocks, and then he started having some things going on in his personal life. And so we had a different version of Jimmy Johnson. But winning still meant so much to him.
Yeah.
And that permeated throughout the entire organization. I was the number 3 PR guy.
Yeah.
And when we won, I felt like I was a part of a winning team.
Really?
And when we lost, I was sick to my stomach for a week. And that was all, which a lot of people say made it hard to play for Jimmy because the roller coaster ride of the ups and downs, but that was a real thing. So there was still a relentless belief or want. I think there was a relentless want to win. Maybe he wasn't quite as devoted as he was in Dallas. But Dan Marino, the competitors I was around, Dan Marino, Jason Taylor, you mentioned, who I've been around all this time, OJ McDuffie, my co-host on the podcast. I OJ would have a bowling night on Tuesday nights, and all his buddies would go out and have fun. And OJ was trying to kick everybody's ass.
Really?
And his mom one time was like, OJ, and he's like, everything in life is competition, Mom. Like, I'm trying to beat you. And just relentless competitors that would do whatever it took within the rules, within the scope of, but they would sacrifice whatever they could to win a football game. And I think that when other guys see that, how could you not want to bring
you want to step up your game. Yeah.
That's it.
How do you think Jimmy Johnson got everyone in the organization, including the number 3 guy in PR, so locked into winning?
That's a great question. He was very big into psychology.
Yeah, right.
He was a master at understanding how to move people and loved to play kind of psychological warfare. He what else I didn't bring up when you asked that question? Confidence. Yeah. There was a confidence, and I don't mean an arrogance. And some guys were arrogant, but there was a confidence. Every one of those guys, they were not afraid to fail as much as they hated to fail. Yeah. And JT would always say, I loathe losing more than I enjoy.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
But the confidence that these guys had in themselves and their process was really impressive. And so Jimmy had a confidence that when he walked into a room, and by the time we got him, the resume was there
the resume spoke for itself.
Why wouldn't you be confident when you built a dynasty? Yeah. You walked away from a dynasty in Dallas, and it was so good that somebody else was able to go win with your team, right? And in UM, he did the same thing. Yeah. And so there was a confidence, swagger. It's the name of his book. Oh, yeah. Speaking of Dave Hyde, so he carried that. But I also think that he just would rile people up in a way. and motivate people in a way that you felt like you were a part of things. Even though like Jimmy never maybe spoke to me directly 3 or 4 times in the 4 years that I worked there, to me directly.
Sure.
Because he couldn't find Harvey most of the time would be the reason.
Where's Harvey?
But there was an energy where you didn't feel that you were on the outside looking in. If you were supposed to be, I could eat in the team meeting rooms. I could be, ride the same buses. I don't know. I just felt like I was a part of it. And when he won, everybody felt good.
Yeah.
He just had that.
That's very cool and very special for a leader to have. I can't let you leave without. You got to have one good Dan Marino story.
Oh, man. Golly. I'm trying to think. I have so many great Dan Marino stories. The thing, I grew up, so Dan Marino got here in 1983. I was 10 years old.
Mm. Right? Yeah, so we're right around the same age.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, for me to watch what Dan Marino did in 1984, people don't understand that is one of the greatest sports feats in the history
100%.
of any sport.
Yes.
To do, we looked at it, I think that he would have led the league this past year in touchdown passes and yards.
Right.
That 84 season.
Yeah. When the rules were totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah, not in his favor.
Not at all.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, what he did, Clayton Duper and the rest of that offense did in 1984 was not only unprecedented, it just was, it was so spectacular. So we all just fell in love with and wanted to, my favorite player of all time and idolized is maybe a stretch because I didn't want to be a quarterback, but I mean, he was a superhero.
I mean, he's on the Mount Rushmore of Miami sports forever.
Absolutely. And so going to work for the Dolphins and being around Dan and seeing the way he prepared and the way it still mattered to him. I got there in 96. So
he was still a good player.
He was still a good player.
But the last leg of his career.
Season 14.
Yeah.
And he still wanted to win as badly as he wanted to win. And again, another guy where you never felt like you were out of a game, even though he was not
Always.
the
That's
Dan Marino.
what I loved about him.
That, you never felt like you were out of a game. So all of those things were cool. I was blown away by the toll the game had taken on his body that you would see Monday through Saturday.
Really?
That nobody else would see. And how hard it was to just tie his shoes.
Yeah, man.
Or the way he would walk around and like, how did that guy, and then all that armor he would put on. And
looked like he had diapers on at
throw
the
the
end.
ball in a way that very few people could ever do. I've gotten to know Dan on a personal level.
Yeah.
Ralph Stringer, who is his longtime marketing manager, he and I have shared an office over the last 22 years. I've been with the foundation, probably 19 of those years.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to know Dan on a personal level that way, and he's just a guy's guy.
Yeah, seems that way.
He's that Pittsburgh, and it comes from his dad.
Yeah,
his upbringing. As much as he is Hollywood superhero, he's just a guy's guy, and those moments around Dan just being a guy's guy are the things that made you like him even more.
Yeah, I've only heard the same exact things that you. I've never heard a bad story about him.
Yeah,
and everybody says he's just a good dude, laid back. Obviously, a special talent. We've never seen an arm like that since then. New regime in town.
Yeah.
You have a small peek into what's going on. Give me your early indications of, the Sully / Hafley regime. Like, what's your vibe, man?
Yeah. So, and let me preface this in terms of having a peek. I'm on the outside looking.
No, I know that.
Point.
Yeah.
I mean, I am. I mean, look, I know people who still work there. I haven't really talked to anybody about this group. But I hear the things that these guys are saying.
Yeah.
And talk is cheap. But the way they're saying things and the pedigree, particularly with Sullivan coming from Green Bay and spending 2.5 decades there and building his career and the way they've built football teams, it feels like the type of football that I grew up professionally around.
Yeah.
The things they value and they seem very process oriented. And I think that McDaniel, while well-intended, was so far to one side.
Yeah, I agree.
That it was an experiment. And this feels like it's rooted more in what the game of football that I'm familiar with is supposed to look like, for me. So we'll see what happens. I love that the general manager has put his name to everything.
Including the quarterback.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
He has not shied away. Will Troy Aikman be in the room helping make picks? Like, look, I love Troy. We
Yeah.
welcome them in. I'm making the final decisions.
Yeah.
And I love when accountability, there's something
Yep.
about accountability, which probably goes back to one of the other things you asked about in terms of the great leaders, is accountability, is owning your flaws as much as you accept, and to be able to stand up there at the podium when you're the hero.
Yeah.
And so I give them a lot of credit to say, I made every one of these picks. I made these decisions. I gathered all the information from people who I respect, but it's me. And so if things don't go right, he's got to own that, but he's already assigned his name to it. And I love that.
Obviously, everybody in this town knows the name Jason Taylor, but they may not know a lot about the Jason Taylor Foundation, which has been around for over 20 years. I didn't know a whole lot about it, and you guys are doing some really special things.
Yeah. Well, the former PR guy needs to do a better job if more people don't know enough about it. But I always say we've got a great big name on the door, and we're a small little organization. 2004, I was working for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Jason had just had his first child,
Yeah.
which is crazy now. Isaiah plays for the University of Miami now.
I was about to say, the other one plays for the Jets.
Yeah. Mason, who was his second child, plays for the Jets. But Isaiah, who is, if you look at the logo of the Jason Taylor Foundation, there's a little boy stacking the blocks. That image was inspired by Isaiah.
Very cool.
So it's really him. I always call him the logo, like
Jerry West.
Jerry West, yeah. So he's Isaiah's the logo. But he's like, look, I just had my first child.
Yeah.
He's healthy. He's blessed. I can take care of him financially.
Yeah.
He's got his parents in his life, all of these things that not every other kid has. And I want to be able to provide opportunities to kids who don't have what my son has. And that was really the genesis of the organization. For somebody who had, I think, been around the concept of community and giving back to people his whole life. And that was rooted in his mother and the way he was brought up. But that was it. And he wanted to start this organization. He and I had kicked around different ways of wanting to work together, but not knowing what that would look like. I didn't want to leave to be somebody's personal assistant. He felt ridiculous. He didn't want to hire a personal assistant.
Right.
Not that I didn't book some flights and do all those things, but the foundation was the piece. And so we launched the organization in 2004, 22 years ago this July. It is crazy. Some of the things that we did, he sent me right around my birthday. He sent me, and I don't drink, but it was a bottle of Dom Perignon.
Okay.
And in the letter, it said, basically celebrate your birthday this week and turn in your 2 weeks next. And I walked into Harvey's office and told him I'd taken a job. And he said, write down what you think this foundation should look like.
Yeah.
And, I had about a 3-page typed up in Word document, nothing about financials, just concepts of what it could look like. And a lot of what was on that paper, we still do today. Our back to school shopping piece. Yeah. We had a ping pong tournament for a long time.
Yeah.
But we have grown, we have evolved. Never thought that we would have the largest spoken word poetry program for youth in the state.
Wow.
That's one of the last things I ever thought we'd get into. When I pitched the idea to Jason, he's like, I'm not writing poems. I said, no, I don't know. You need you to write the poems. Kids to write the poems. But I think the important thing is we've invested in young people. Jason is a firm believer that everyone in life deserves an opportunity.
Sure.
They may not get it. They deserve it. But if it comes around, you better be ready for it because you may never see it again.
Yeah.
And so we try to prepare young people for opportunities in different ways. And we spent a lot of time with teenagers.
Yeah.
I'm spending a week with teenagers this week in our Careers in Sports Network. And ultimately, it's just finding a way to invest in young people the way he felt people invested in him, the way I wish people had invested in me.
Yeah.
And I think it's paying dividends.
Well, that's great because it's been impactful to our community. And Jason's done a lot. So on your show, you have a segment called the 2-minute drill.
Yeah.
And here today, I'm going to give you your own little 2-minute drill.
I love it.
Are you ready?
I love it. Let's go.
Favorite Dolphin player you've ever been around?
Well, if I don't say Jason Taylor, outside of the guy who signs my paychecks.
Okay. So we'll strike him off.
It's tough. Boy, it's tough. There's so many guys, so blessed. Larry Izzo, one of my great friends.
He played forever.
96 to have Larry Izzo and Zach Thomas. I mean, that was a lot of fun. A guy, and Dan Marino.
What is Larry Izzo doing now?
Larry is the special teams coach for the Washington Commanders.
I was about to say it. I should have just guessed. He's a special teams coach somewhere.
Teams coach. Larry, Zach, OJ, Lindo Mari. I know I'm going off the rails for the 2-minute drill. Yeah. Mike Westhoff was their special teams coach,
right?
And he's receiving an award in Canton, Ohio, at the Hall of Fame this week. So those guys are up there. But those guys were all great. Obviously, OJ and I were super close.
Yeah.
Mark Dixon is a name.
Mark Dixon,
that's a name that you probably wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
One of my favorite guys.
Really,
one of my all-time favorite. Just a special friendship I had with Mark. Hilarious guy, incredible story.
Yeah. Canada, right? He came in from Canada.
He played at the University of Virginia, and then didn't make it in the league, and was driving a riding lawnmower, cutting grass at a golf course. Got an opportunity in Canada, parlayed that into an opportunity, and Jimmy Johnson called him the gift from heaven.
Isn't that crazy?
And he showed up here and became our best offensive lineman for a period of time.
For a lot of years. Good for him. Best trash talker.
Ooh, Sam Madison was
I remember that.
For trash. And he had this voice. Anybody knows Sam? Sam has this high-pitched voice. We played in San Diego. I remember they had an open-aired press box, and you could hear Sam's voice. Like you knew it was uniquely his. Sam was a great trash talker.
Great player.
I didn't work with Channing Crowder. Like I was already I very close with Channing, but I was already working with JT full-time. I heard Channing would like research media guides, and he would definitely go below the belt. And
it's no surprise he's been pretty good in the media too.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Most entertaining fish tank guest.
Oh man, we have 200-something episodes. That is a really tough one. And we've had so many guys and had so much fun. I feel unprepared now to not have one. We've had a bunch.
We've named a few. I mean, Sammy Smith was a great episode.
Was really good.
Some of these other guys.
So entertaining.
Entertaining is different.
Interesting, but entertaining guys who just have you rolling. Lewis Oliver.
I need to listen to that.
It's a great episode.
Yeah.
Lewis was hilarious.
All right, I'll check that one out.
Lewis was hilarious. He tells a Don Shula story that will have you crying.
All right, I'm going to check that one out. One person that you've been wanting to interview that hasn't been on the show.
Matt Roth.
Matt Roth, defensive lineman, Iowa. Why him?
So many guys have told Matt Roth. You know what? And in fairness, I'm going to back up. For me to not say Channing Crowder, I'm probably fish tank fans are going to be very upset with me. We've had Channing on 3 or 4 times. He's probably the most entertaining.
Yeah, he's an entertaining
Channing's. We did one episode, had to break it into 2. Listen to the early Crowder episodes because they're off the rails.
Yeah,
but Lewis Oliver's a good one. Channing tells a Matt Roth story. He told one Matt Roth story that we ended up having to cut out. The Matt Roth stories are crazy. They're a little bit like, who's the guy, may he rest in peace, who played Ogre in Revenge of the Nerds. I mean, Matt's,
I know who you're talking about. I forgot his name.
Stories
are
wild,
yeah.
And I wish we could get Matt on. I spoke with Matt, and then he stopped returning my calls. I don't think he wants to come on. But he would be a guy that we would really, really love.
All right, Matt Roth. If you don't want to go on his show, you can come on this show anytime you want.
Oh,
okay?
my gosh. Yeah.
Let's get you on.
And he's are you from Chicago? I think
I lived there for a long time. Okay. Yeah. I'll fly up to Chicago and get him on the show. Best sports event that you've witnessed in person?
That's a good one. I was blessed to have worked a Super Bowl, which was really cool.
Super cool.
But I didn't feel as connected to it because it wasn't my team playing, So I'm thinking of Dolphins games, and to have been in so, being a part of the last, which is crime to say, it's been 25 years, but the last playoff game that the Dolphins won, that overtime victory,
Larry Smith, right?
Against Lamar Smith, 17 yards off, kind of bounces off the right side there and rumbles in for a touchdown in overtime to win in the playoffs. We haven't won since. That was an incredible win. There was just a lot. We had the game in New England where we won, but then the referee's knocking on the door and has us come back out for one more play. Yeah. Are you familiar with that game?
I remember that.
Yeah. Because they said that the clock, there was still like 3 seconds left on the clock. And so the Patriots had another chance to throw a Hail Mary, and we had players out there without their shoes tied, without their shoulder pads on. We had guys walking out in their towels with nothing underneath going out there, and it was 40 degrees. And so that was a crazy game to be a part of.
Crazy. Yeah. All right. This one's really important. Ready? Who would you rather get stuck on a 6-hour road trip with?
Oh my goodness.
Joe Rose or Kimbo Camper?
Oh, how can you put me in that position? So I produce the Out the Pasture podcast with both of those guys. I would most prefer to be in the back seat and listen to the two of them tell stories the whole time.
Which would be a great ride.
Which might be a cop-out answer.
Yeah.
Who's driving?
You pick. One of those guys has to drive.
I will say this. So if you go back and listen to this, it wasn't the Steve Goldstein episode. It was right around the time. But we played Detroit in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we practiced with Detroit.
Yeah.
And Bo and Goldie went on this like Thelma and Louise road trip together. And Bo came back and told the story. And Joe was about to, what was it, Airplane? Remember the movie Airplane? Where people were, not to joke about this, but like people wanted to jump out of the plane and kill themselves because of the story that Stryker kept telling. Yeah. Well, that's how Joe felt with Bo's story. So because of that, if Bo would tell stories the way he did with Goldie, I'm going with Joe Rose. I hope Bo doesn't fire me.
He won't.
But you know when Bo's going to fire me? Because I did this show before he did.
I've invited him on.
Okay.
I'd love to have him on. He's going to come on. He's going to come on before the season, I promise.
I said, I'm going on with Dan. I'm going on a show. He goes, you're going on with Dan? He goes, I go, have you not been on yet? He goes, no, I haven't. I said, oh boy.
I've had Larry Little on. I've had the producer of a movie that he's on. Bo, you need to come on the show. Okay. As we all know.
I blew through I ruined the 2-minute drill.
That's okay. It's the 8-minute drill. We all know that the Hard Rock Stadium is built on ancient Indian burial ground.
Yes.
Do you believe in the curse?
I do not. I just did. So one of the other things we do on our live show is the I tried to tell y'all section. And we all do this. It's almost like an audio column.
Okay.
And I'm going to send it to you.
Please.
And I just did one on curses aren't real. Yes, It's built on the Tequesta Native American tribe. It's built on that burial ground. That is one of the potential curses. Mercury Morris buried a voodoo doll of Don Shula.
Did he really?
Yeah, and said the Dolphins will never win a Super Bowl. And my stepdad and I wanted to go dig that thing up. We asked Merc about it on the fish tank. He admitted that it was a real thing. I don't believe in curses. I don't want to believe in curses.
I don't want to believe in curses either.
Sometimes it gets a little rough out here, man.
You see the Knicks winning the championship after 50-something years. I'm like, wait a minute, the Dolphins are down that path. Why not us? We're next, baby. All right. 2 questions, and then I'll let you go. How many games are we going to win this season?
I think it's going to be rough, but I think they're going to be better than they expect. And so, I apologize to all the parents out there. I think 6 or 7 games, and I am not playing
I'd be
off
happy
the
with
6, 7 thing.
But
I do think it's going to be 6 or 7 games.
Yeah.
And I typically don't make predictions, Dan. If you listen to the show, you know that. But I think this is going to be a better team than people expect because unlike 2019, where the goal was to strip it to the rails and to be as bad as they could possibly be, obviously rumors of maybe even some foul play and literally trying to throw games. You don't want to believe that's the case. Obviously, Brian Flores would not allow that to be the case. But I think this team wants to be competitive. They just know that there's going to be limitations. And I think there's some good football players on this team. And it seems to me like they're going to be well coached.
I
think
agree.
Because of that, they're going to win more games than people expect.
Yeah, for sure. A little birdie told me that today's your birthday.
Yesterday
your birthday.
Was my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
We have a special guest here. Harvey Green's going to...
No, my God. Some gift.
Some gift. My friend, where can people find out about you, the podcast, the foundation?
Yeah. Well, I'll work backwards. So the foundation, it's the JasonTaylorFoundation.com.org, or on all the socials, we're at JT Foundation 99. If you want to check out the Fish Tank, it's the Fish Tank 81 for OJ McDuffie. So the Fish Tank 81, Instagram, Twitter. We have a lot of fun on Twitter for sure. And then on YouTube, it's the Fish Tank Podcast.
It's a great podcast. I was listening to it before I knew Seth. If you're a Dolphin fan and you love great stories, I highly, highly recommend it, and it's pretty funny. And they do the 2-minute drill within 2 minutes. So
sometimes we've had some 8-minute drills. We give the guys timeouts. We have some guys absolutely obliterated. I know when I leave here, I'm going to be like, oh, I should have mentioned this one. I should have mentioned that one. Please go back and listen to the audio stuff.
For sure.
So everything's on YouTube now. But there's so many good things. And even when we were with the Dolphins, some of those were abbreviated versions of things. But there's so many great stories that have been told on the audio-only platform, and I hope people will catch up on them.
All right, my friend, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.